Oh, man. My unit, salute. Welcome to the Amped Up Podcast for Wednesday, June the 28th, 2023. I got a good one for you today. This Amped Up Podcast is going to make you laugh if you got a sense of humor anyway, because you can't make this up. The irony is just too good. Apparently, there's a term in the community called vinced. A show got vinced. Now, I first came across this. I don't know if he made the term up, but I first came across it with Sean Ross Sapp saying that SmackDown recently got vinced. And then the community kind of ran with it. Apparently, when a show gets vinced, that means that Vince had more say than Paul Levesque, who is the chief content creative officer. The guy who himself, Paul Levesque, said, no, it's me. Yes, Vince has input. A lot of people do. But the buck stops with me. Nick Khan has said time and time again, of course, Vince will have input, but it's Paul Levesque. Seriously, people don't want, and this was a quote, people don't want to believe it, but it's Paul Levesque making the decisions, or the majority. Vince McMahon said, I'm in the weeds, but not deep into them for the little decisions, the bigger decisions. That now lies with Paul Levesque. Whether you believe any of it or not, that's in the eye of the beholder. That's a different conversation, right? If you know how to really critique pro wrestling, for instance, you're seeing a little bit of Vince McMahon on these shows at times, and you're seeing a hell of a lot of Paul Levesque. Like the beatdowns with Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes or Balor and Sethington. Right, over the course of a couple of different segments, a lot of backstage beatdown. That's Paul Levesque. He did so much of that in NXT. You could see that that's his blueprint, right? So you could see a lot of Paul Levesque if you remember the NXT days, even though you can't properly recreate that. A lot of people just want to relive black and gold, and that's why they look at Paul Levesque as their savior. It's different, guys. First of all, it's a different time already in 2023. And secondly, that's not the same Paul Levesque. It's a shell of what he once was. So even if Vince was long gone and this was solely on Paul Levesque, guess what? The dude already admitted he doesn't know what to do with a third hour, and he's confused AF with a second hour. If you give Paul Levesque 1 hour of television, stuff it on the WWE network, he's okay. Give him 5 matches at a takeover, for instance, okay, you're going to get good wrestling. Anything more than that, guys, Paul Levesque is burnt out. He can't do the job that is needed in WWE. That's the truth. It's one thing if you have Dusty Rhodes and William Regal and so many great minds that have already set the table of NXT for you, and you just got to play the role of Papa H. And who's footing the bill of NXT? The whole time it was Vince McMahon. Paul Levesque never put a dime into it. Vince McMahon never made a dime off of NXT. He just kept on funding it so H could play Papa H. Meanwhile, people like Dusty Rhodes, William Regal, and so many others had to do the actual grunt work because Paul Levesque has to go to a meeting with Vince. But I'll be back for the show and I'll play Papa H. I'll override some decisions, mix up some things. I'll have conversations so they know that I'm their papa and I'm out for their best interest. But these days, everything bad in WWE, you just say it's Vince. A show got vinced. And if it's good, even if it is Vince, it could be Brewster Pritchard. It could be Kevin Dunn from production coming up with it. It could be creative writer 617 or agent Jason Jordan. Doesn't matter. You're going to give the credit to Paul Levesque. Anything bad, Vince. Now, we've been playing this game for months, right? BC has been calling out the hypocrisy. BC has been calling this out because this doesn't help the product. This just gives everybody a scapegoat, even when Vince is away. Every single Monday, if you notice, there's a new report hours before Raw. The show is being remotely changed and ripped up by Vince. Now, nobody truly knows that. That's just an easy story to write because everybody can believe it. It's Vince, after all. We can absolutely believe what we just read, right? So every Monday night, hours before the show, it just happened again this week. Vince isn't there, but we heard that his fingerprints are heavily on the show. Who's telling you that? Did Vince really call up a fucking dirt sheet and go, yeah, it's me. It was me all along. I've been on the line for 20 minutes. I rewrote the script, and I did it remotely. You don't even know where I did it. I could be on a boat in the middle of the Atlantic, and I ripped up that script. Just to hear you bitch boys cry. 'Cause I took away your good show. Who's doing that? Vince isn't leaking that out. Who's doing that? Come on. It's an easy story, right? You just say, the show is getting Vinced. His fingerprints are on it. Therefore, you can already guarantee the show is going to be one of the worst ever, right? And then people go into the show already expecting the worst. This week, it reached a fever pitch, right? Hours before the show. Vince's fingerprints are all over the show, is what we heard. So everybody went into Monday Night Raw knowing that this was going to be one of the worst we've ever seen. This show is being completely Vinced. 24/7 title might be back. Tozawa will be a ninja. R-Truth will be jumping out of a trash can dressed up as a Power Ranger. Who knows? Dana Brooke versus Eva Marie versus Lana in a triple threat match. Number one contender for the title. Oh, it's being Vinced. And when the show was over, it was clear that Paul Levesque had majority of the say of the show, right? You saw nothing but wrestling. A lot of wrestling matches, right? What was it? Let's go back. You had Gunther and Sami Zayn. Good wrestling match, actually. Gave them time. They wrestled. Shinsuke Nakamura and Ricochet. Gave them time. They wrestled. Tommaso Ciampa, no, he just got fucking mauled. You had Cody Rhodes, Damian Priest. They gave him 16 minutes. They let him wrestle. Balor versus Carmelo Hayes. They let him wrestle. And probably more. I ripped up one of the fucking pages. I don't know if that was on purpose. I guess we got amplified in that review. But all these wrestling, and they gave them time and they had wrestling matches. See, Paul Levesque can do that. Paul Levesque can take wrestler A, wrestler B, and let him have a wrestling match. That's good. Honestly, no shade. That's where Paul Levesque is at his best. When everybody else is making the bigger decisions, and he gets to put some periods and exclamation points, gets to cross some T's and dot some I's, right? Vince is footing the bill, other people are masterminding the actual logistics, and he gets to come and play Papa H, and only for about 5 shows a pay-per-view and only 1 hour of television a week. That was NXT Black and Gold. It was good. No question, just like Superstars of Wrestling back in the day in the 80s. It was great. 1 hour, let's crush it. Set up all your storylines, pay-per-views massive, take the fucking dollar bills out of our paychecks. If you're a kid, you're working your ass off doing chores for the week, so they're taking the dollar bills out of your fucking parents' paychecks, but we'll buy the pay-per-views. Because it's easy peasy, lemon squeezy, as Oscar would say, right? It's 1 hour of television a week, you're setting up some good fucking storylines because you ain't got nothing else to do. Paul Levesque's fingerprints were all over Monday Night Raw. When the show was over, everybody that was crying in this community, guys, we went live before Raw on this channel. We did a live stream. We were live. Even the first 6 minutes of Raw, we were still live. So we were gauging the community in real time. I was live when my unit told me that articles were breaking, or maybe I came across articles that were literally being made of Vince McMahon destroying the show hours before Raw. And when the show was over on Monday night, guys, no bullshit, everybody was tucking their tail between their legs, sitting on their thumbs after they've already duct taped their own mouths because they weren't saying a word. It was far from one of the worst Raws. Was it good? Oh, not so fast. If you saw my review, I critiqued this show perfectly, I feel. A little biased, but I critiqued this show better than what you're going to find in this community. Because we went segment by segment. We looked at the rights and the wrongs, what it does for the characters, the stories, and the company going forward, what it does for the fans. That's how we critique these shows. But to say it's a good show, hard-pressed to do that, not even close. But to say this was one of the worst shows we've seen, or horrendous, nobody was saying that when hours before the show, they were already claiming it'll be one of the worst Raws we've ever witnessed because it's been Vinced. We're calling it a term now. And when it was over, everybody saw a lot of Paul Levesque on this show. Again, I'll be the first to say, maybe that's why it wasn't one of the worst and not horrendous. A lot of wrestling. But Paul Levesque still doesn't have the story down. He doesn't know how to do that properly without a Paul Heyman headlining, front-manning, captaining the Bloodline storyline. I assure you that's Paul Heyman at the forefront. Paul Levesque doesn't know how to put the stories together, man. And people just want to say his hands are tied. It's Vince McMahon overriding everything. No, that's not the case. I'm trying to say that so that we can help this product get better. You claimed it was Vinced going into it. Coming out of it, the show was not as bad as you thought, so you weren't even giving Paul Levesque credit. We were just saying, we don't know what to believe. I heard it was Vinced, but it wasn't one of the worst. It's gotta be Paul then. It's gotta be Paul. Yeah, he gave you the wrestling. Isn't that what a lot of people cry they want more of? But they didn't want to admit they were wrong. They didn't want to admit that they threw a tantrum. Right? Oh, we thought it was Vince. We got our fucking panties in a bunch. We screamed, we talked, we yelled, we ranted. And then coming out of it, oh, it looks like Paul Levesque's blueprint was on it. We got some good wrestling matches. But it's still far from a good show. So if we say that Paul Levesque gave us some good in the wrestling matches, we also say that Paul Levesque was lacking a lot. So we can't do that because we can't say anything bad about Paul Levesque. So what we have to do is just shut the fuck up about it. We're not even going to talk about it. Because they don't want to say, hey, Paul gave us good wrestling, but Paul didn't really give us good stories. Paul didn't really captivate us to the point where we could say this was a good show. I guess just long wrestling matches, they don't really make a good show. It's a part of making things better. Yay, Levesque. I'll be on board with that. But you need all the other ingredients to make this recipe an actual baked cake. Nobody wants to do that, right? You want to call out all the good that Paul Levesque is doing, but you don't want to call out the bad. Or if it is bad, you just want to say that's Vince and the good is Levesque. So what am I getting at? Let's fast forward now, right? Now we have this term Vinced. And you have everybody talking about how this past Monday's show was Vinced. Everybody going, oh, this is going to be one of the worst. Oh, good to know. I'm not even watching, right? That's what I was seeing live, right? People were saying, oh, good to know. I'm not even watching this show if it's Vinced. Do you know what they pulled in the ratings? Get this. It turns out Vince McMahon equals ratings. Monday Night Raw pulled a 1.97. This week in the ratings, 1.97. Almost 2 million viewers. It's their best since WrestleMania time. A few months ago. 1.97. Last week, 1.82 when the rumblings were about the blueprint of Vince McMahon being all over the show, and they went back up to a 1.82. This week, they went up another 100,000 plus. Once word got out that the show was being Vinced, they pulled in nearly 2 million viewers. Now, this is not shade to another company, AEW, but just for transparency, just to put this in comparison, right? Just some fun comparison. This is not a dig to AEW, but let's talk about this. A show that was supposedly Vinced did better than all 3 of AEW shows combined this week in the ratings. If you took AEW Dynamite's rating this week, you put it with AEW Rampage's rating, and you put it with Collision, AEW Collision's rating. If you added them all up, they would equal roughly 1.7-ish. 8 some odd, 5 some odd, 3 some odd, I believe. Maybe 4 some odd. 3 to 4. So you equaled around 1.7. 1.97 this week for Raw. Raw defeated all 3 of AEW shows together and they still had a couple 100,000 viewers to spare. That's a show that got vinced. So what's my point? BC, are you happy about it? Do you like Vince, BC, right? Because if you don't watch the channel, right, you're like, well, what's BC saying? Everything he's saying is true, but I don't... Does he have a narrative? Does BC have a point that he's making that's going to appease the IWC crowd? No, I don't have a narrative. I just drop facts. People that watch my channel, my amplified unit, you know exactly where I'm going with this. If you're new to the channel, man, I wish you saw a lot of reviews beforehand, because you know, Vince McMahon, I'm not part of that club with Vince and Kennedy. We drag Vince McMahon for justified reasons, and we rip these shows apart for justified reasons. For the 6 years I've had this channel, I'll be the first one to tell you these shows are not where they should be and could be. But I'm the first one to tell you that just blaming Vince McMahon from here on out and letting Paul Levesque off the hook, you're not part of the solution to make this better. You're actually part of the problem. There is a portion of fans, I use that term loosely in this community, they have an aneurysm over everything Vince McMahon does. If Vince McMahon does not take an 8 a.m. shit, you're going to hear about it. If Vince McMahon chooses Wheaties over Life cereal at 9 a.m., you're going to hear about it. If Vince McMahon decides to go fishing over golfing at 10 a.m., you're going to hear about it. If Vince McMahon decided to show up to his show, it's still his company. Endeavor owns 51%, but he is still running the company, according to Ari, the CEO of Endeavor. Vince McMahon still runs the company. Are you really shocked he's going to show up to some of his events? Are you shocked he's going to be at his shows? Because these fans, they throw temper tantrums. Anytime he even stumbles into the weeds. If he wants to mow the lawn and the lawnmower gets too close to the weeds, they have an aneurysm. Listen, nobody is happy with Vince McMahon's creative or lack thereof decisions in the last 10 years plus. Way more than I've had this channel. Nobody's happy with it. But Paul Levesque, if you're going to claim he's a little better, it ain't that much. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and Paul Levesque plays to his favorites, and he shits on people he doesn't like. And there is a lot of individuals, a lot of them that we really like, that we think should be something in that company. Paul Levesque will take a shit on them. Paul Levesque plays the same games that Vincent does, and Paul Levesque is not as creative as you give him credit for. Black and Gold, the reincarnation, you're never going to get that back. He doesn't even have the same people around him, and it's a different time and era already. You're not going to get that back. Paul Levesque has told you he doesn't even know how to book for a third hour, let alone a second hour. It's clear he's dazed and confused. Can he even handle 1 hour anymore? Paul Levesque is responsible for a lot of the trash we've been seeing in recent months especially. You don't want to blame him, you just want to blame Vince. But if you blamed Triple H more, we would get farther along to the goal we're all trying to accomplish, which is making WWE great again. If you held Paul Levesque accountable and up to the standard of what his name, his title, says that he is, Chief Content Creative Officer. Even if you truly believe Vince is making 100% of the decisions, wouldn't you still hold him accountable because he is the lead ass kisser? He is the lead enabler. I sound like a broken record. I apologize to my amplified unit, Red Team and Gold Team, my channel members especially, because I say this all the time. But even if you believe Vince is overriding and doing Paul Levesque dirty, at what point do you say, dude, you're enabling him every step of the way? Like, you can literally walk away. And for people that go, what do you expect him to do, BC? He's not going to walk away from a good job like that. He's second in command. You would do that if you were at McDonald's and being treated like shit. And you would do that if you were at Wall Street making 6-7 figures. If your boss every single day you showed up to work treated you like shit, did you dirty and even filthy, wouldn't there come a day where you would grow a set? find your spine and walk out. Tell them your thoughts and walk out. Don't you have any self-respect, any moral compass within? Don't you have any semblance of pride? Or do you just let somebody shit on you all the time and literally override you and do you dirty and filthy, and you're going to be okay with it because you're so close to the top of the mountain? Because you make good money? Because you have the power? You're going to treat Paul Levesque like a victim when you should be holding him accountable. His title, I don't care how much you think he truly has power in these shows, his title is Chief Content Creative Officer. He goes out of his way to tell you he is the be-all, end-all. And you let him off the hook. The company, these people, they don't like the shows. It's clear. They say they're getting vinced, even when we see a lot of Paul Levesque on it. The rating has went up to an almost 2.0. Could you imagine if your narrative was this show we're hearing is Paul Levesque? It's H'd. It's schnozzed. That goes better. That's a better term we could use. This show is being schnozzed, right? And then coming out of it, you get a 2.0 rating, and you can say, we got good wrestling, the rating is up. See that? Paul Levesque is best for business. No, you screwed yourself. You called it vinced, and you caught yourself in a hole. Switch up the narrative. Give H credit. I'm cool with it. But also hold him accountable. Blame H more. My point is, if you start to blame H more, if the community starts an uproar and we start to hold Paul Levesque accountable, you can feel bad for him. You could think that he's being done dirty by Vince. That's fine. But start holding him accountable. This will start to make Paul Levesque notice that, I can't fly under the radar anymore. They used to just blame Vince and I got off scot-free. Now they're blaming me too. They're putting my ass to the coals. They're adding fuel to the fire and the kitchen's getting hot. I gotta start making changes or I'm fucking out. I'll start my own promotion. My point is, if you start to hold Paul Levesque accountable and stop acting like he's the victim, you're gonna get real change, even if it means Levesque finally leaving. Maybe him and Stephanie, maybe. I know it's the boss's daughter, but maybe they start a different promotion. Maybe Levesque would go. Maybe it would get so hot in that kitchen between the two, Levesque would go over to All Elite Wrestling and help out Tony Khan, and maybe All Elite Wrestling could be something better. I don't think Paul Levesque has it in him anymore to run a company by himself, but hey, some people think that would be best for business. Maybe Levesque and Tony Khan would be good bedfellows, good to work with one another. Maybe. But you'll never know unless you hold Paul Levesque accountable. The whole point of this is the irony, right? The more and more that these fans hold these temper tantrums, everything is Vince McMahon's fault. It rained in the morning because of Vince McMahon. You got a flat tire because of Vince McMahon. They didn't have your Egg McMuffin at McDonald's, right? How do you run out of the Egg McMuffin? It's not McDonald's fault. It's not the manager that should have ordered more Egg McMuffins. It's Vince McMahon's fault. You lost custody of your kids, not because you were an ignoramus. No, it's because Vince McMahon is an asshole and doesn't know how to do creative wrestling anymore, doesn't care about his product. That's why you lost your kids. You're getting a divorce, not because you're a shitty spouse or because there were so many problems in your marriage. It's because Vince McMahon brings out a shitty wrestling product. Vince, 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 Vince. How many times does somebody have to show you who they are before you finally believe them, right? If they're going to call Paul Levesque the Chief Content Creative Officer, let's start holding him accountable. Then he will get so pissed off, so irate, that there's going to be change between him and Vince and how things work and operate, or he's going to have to walk. You don't have to feel bad for him. He's a multi-millionaire. He is already set for life. Got a $5 million bonus when the sale kicked in. H is fine. There's victims in life. Feel bad for them. That's fine. H is not a victim. every single day, individuals, a lot of them that live paycheck to paycheck, come across bosses that are actually treating them like filth and doing them filthy. And they have to man up and say, you know what? I have to leave the job. I can't do this shit. I'm not going to do this shit. This is not worth any amount of money. I will take care of my family. I will find a way to put diapers on the kids. I will find a way to put kibble in my dog's bowl. I will find a way to do all this. Pay the rent. Get food on our table. But this is no way to live. There has to be a point in everybody's life where you say that. Paul Levesque, we just say, nah, he's a victim, BC, and there's nothing he can do. Vince is spanking his ass every show and locking me into the closet and overriding and ripping up all the good creative that Triple H has slaved over. No, BC, you're looking at it wrong, man. H is a victim, and we have to just stand behind him firmly. How's that working out for you? We tried it those fans' way, and it not only failed, the numbers are going up. It turns out being Vinced and people thinking that Vince has control back, it's bringing people to the show. But we know the shows are not up to par. So you can do it one of two ways. Like those fans, you can say, yeah, let's keep blaming Vince. Let's throw tantrums about Vince, and let's keep saying things like, I feel so bad for Paul Levesque. I feel so bad for Triple H. You can keep doing it that way and look at what's happening. Or you can finally say BC was right all along. BC was accurate from day one. Maybe if we were just blaming Paul Levesque too, that would start the process of real change. Because now Paul Levesque is feeling the heat. Right now, you're being bullshitted too. He's calling himself the chief content creative officer, and you're looking right past him because you think Vince is doing all of it, and you're like, we know this show sucked. We're not blaming you, Paul. Don't worry. Can you move aside, man? We got to talk to Vince. Vince isn't hearing you. Vince isn't on social media going, I wonder what people are saying about me. You think Vince is listening to any of your shit? Paul Levesque is, actually. Paul Levesque does. And Paul Levesque is seeing that no matter what, you're looking right past him. And if anything is good, he'll get the credit for it. You're not getting the change that you're ever going to get. The change that you want, you're never going to get. Unless you start blaming the guy who is literally called the chief content creative officer. I don't care if you think he even has any say in these shows. Which, if you know how to critique wrestling, you know his blueprint is on a lot of these shows. I've said for the longest, this is a Vince McMahon, Paul Levesque operation now. It just is. So let's start blaming them both when something is not right. That's the only way for the other dude to tell the other dude, this sucks, and I'm getting blamed for it. I'm not standing for this shit anymore. Or at the bare minimum, I'm not going to be called this stupid title and get all the shit that you're creating for me, right? But that's never going to happen. Paul is never going to have those real conversations with Vince until we hold him accountable. There's reports this week, and they're so stupid. They're not even reports. It's people like Dave Meltzer going, you got to believe that people like Paul Levesque are frustrated backstage. This is no lie. Dave Meltzer put up a report saying that people backstage are pissed off, suits and ties. But if you actually listen to what he said, he literally says, you gotta believe Paul Levesque is one of them. No, you don't. Have you followed Paul Levesque's career? He latches on to power. He did it in WCW with William Regal when he got in that tag team, and he made sure that he sniffed Regal's ass the entire time. He knew Regal had a lot of stroke. He tried to get in with Ric Flair. Ric Flair wanted nothing to do with him in WCW. Oddly, funny enough, when H got power in WWF later on in life, Ric Flair was right there under the wing of H. H made sure that he was attached to Flair. When H got to WWE, WWF, he could have learned a lot about WWF and pro wrestling by Bret Hart and many others. As a sober guy who did not drink or drug like Paul Levesque, you would think he would hang out with people like the Bret Harts. No, he latched on to the clique, the partiers, and became a designated driver for Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall. Why? He doesn't even party. It's because they were always in Vince's office, always in Vince's ear. That was the fastest way into Vince's office. Got himself a storyline with Stephanie, and what did he do? He kicked China to the curb because he was right there with power. He was with Stephanie, and he kicked into a relationship with Stephanie the second he got into a storyline. The second he was able to get into Stephanie's ear, China was done filthy. China was kicked to the curb and eventually out of WWE, and Stephanie McMahon, married her, married into the family. Now at this point, Paul Levesque is in every meeting. He's right there with Vince. He's Vince's right-hand man. And now he's got the title, every part of his career. He's latched onto power. He put that big schnoz right up everybody with power's his ass. And if you think Shane McMahon walked away from his own father, Stephanie McMahon walked away from her own father, Paul Levesque will never. He'll never. He loves the power too much. And when we complain that it's all Vince, what has he done multiple times? Let me tell you, if you haven't caught Paul Levesque's interviews, he says you don't know what you're talking about. Vince knows what's best for business, and we just don't know what we're talking about. That's what he said time and time again. He mocks you, saying if you don't like it, don't watch. Mark. Calls you Mark. He mocks you time and time again, and you look past it because he's your savior. I've heard that term so many times from fans in wrestling, and usually the savior ends up being nothing more than a failure. You know, I just recently heard that CM Punk Phil Brooks was going to save All Elite Wrestling. I just got the Collision rating yesterday. He didn't really save anything. Instead, that is a sinking ship that is going down faster than the Titanic at this point. But Paul Levesque will save WWE. He's the only option. Paul Levesque is the only way to save WWE. I'm not seeing it. I hadn't seen it his whole career. NXT was the first time. Even Vince Russo says, listen, when I was writing, people came up for an idea. Shawn Michaels, even Nash, even Hall. Paul Levesque never really came up to me with any ideas. Paul Levesque he had to handle what I gave him. He could get frustrated, but he never had ideas. Vince Russo said that. NXT Black and Gold, he had a lot of chefs in the kitchen that knew what they were doing, knew how to cook. He just got to play the role of Papa H. And now there's a portion of fans that have put Paul Levesque on a pedestal as a victim. And now all we hear about every week is the shows being Vinced. Well, if 2 million viewers out of nowhere is being Vinced, looks like Vince is going to come back full time. The irony. These fans that blame Vince for everything, they're making sure that the product stays the same. They're going to get more Vince because they claimed these shows are Vinced. It's ironic. Those fans are doing more harm than good. Those fans are part of the problem. I wish they would honestly start blaming Paul Levesque. Even if you think the shows are majority Vince McMahon booked, you're not going to get anything changed or anything in the right direction if you don't blame Papa H, Paul Levesque, Schnoz McGee, Pinocchio Pussface. But he'll keep giving you the BS. He'll keep feeding you the lies. And you'll believe it. And you'll act like he's a victim. And you'll keep blaming Vince. Nothing will truly change. Try it BC's way. If you truly respect Papa H, put his ass to the fire. It'll force him to be a better person, better man. It'll force him to be a better businessman. It'll force him to be better in the pro wrestling industry, and we will hopefully reap the benefits. You called him the savior. All right, let's give him a real chance to do such. Stand up to the old bastard. Or take the blame with him. How's it been going these last several months? Acting like he's the victim and blaming Vince. You still ain't getting the shows that you want. Now the ratings are going up, and you're going to get more Vince McMahon, it looks like. That's what I got for you. We talked long in depth about this subject, but you can't help but laugh at this point. We've already ranted, we raved, we complained, we bitched, we moaned, we screamed, we did all that. But there's a pocket of fans that refuse to blame anybody but Vince, meaning Papa H. They refuse. They feel bad for Papa H. And those are the fans that are part of the problem, and they're making it bigger. And because of those fans, we can't get a better show, product, or company. Those fans have to wake up. You have to start blaming Paul Levesque. My name's BC Amplified. This has been the Amped Up Podcast, Wednesday, June 28th, 2023. Until next time, and there will be a next time, BC saying, hold up. You thought I was ending it right there. No. I remembered. Hold up. There was a couple of super thankses down below. I got to give a shout out to a couple of Amplified Unit members in the podcast we just put up yesterday, I believe, right? The Raw Review podcast. There was a couple of individuals that threw a coffee over to BC. The channel member of the week, gold card member of the week, WWE, AEW, Marvel fan. Salute. Smash that super thanks down below and sent BC a coffee. So let me read that super thanks comment. WWE, AEW, Marvel fan, 2-spot coffee. Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler versus Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez is a pathetic middle finger to Isla Dawn and Alba Fire. I give credit to JR9 as he says that they should have had a big moment in the UK at Money in the Bank. Well, WWE, AEW, Marvel fan, blame the chief content creative officer, Paul Levesque. And if he was overrided with that decision by Vince McMahon, blame Paul Levesque. Because he's the only one that's in the ear of Vince McMahon. You're exactly right. I agree with you, WWE, AEW, Marvel fan, but that's what I'm trying to say. If we now put the complaints to somebody who's going to hear them like Paul Levesque, he can now, who's the only person to do this, he can now put those complaints into the Vince McMahon eardrums. Or he can keep his spine and his balls in Stephanie's purse and not do a damn thing, and we can treat him like a victim. WWE, AEW, Marvel fan. I agree 100%. Ali with a 5-spot coffee super thanks. Ali, I appreciate it. Salute. Let me read that super thanks comment by Ali. Hey, BC, was just wondering, did you read my 1-month super chat from yesterday's stream? Was that from the live stream on Monday night? Well, Ali says it was about Vince McMahon and Triple H. If not, I will repeat it again here. We all love WWE. I don't know if I caught that. I try to catch them, Ali, when we're live. Especially the membership super chats, man. I always try to catch them live because I don't get a list afterwards, so I have to catch them live. So if the second it went live, I either did catch it or I just missed it. All apologies, Ali. But let me read what you did say. Love, like I said there, we all love WWE. It's just the way that Vince McMahon books. It is horrible, and Triple H needs to man up and stop kissing Vince McMahon's ass and get his balls back from Stephanie's purse. Ali, I second that. I absolutely agree. Now, Ali, it seems like you're going a little bit more toward Vince McMahon has a lot of say in WWE. So you're in that camp. I'm saying they're 50-50 bare minimum. In fact, so a lot of these shows, I'm seeing a lot more Paul Levesque and what he used to do in NXT. He tries to do a little bit here, and it doesn't work the same. Now, you may blame Vince McMahon for that and overrides, but Ali, that's what I'm saying, what Ali just said, and what I said several times in this podcast over the course of the 40, 45 minutes, whatever this is going to be. Ali is exactly right. Even if Vince, let's just say Vince has 60-40 control over, okay, nothing's going to change with you just calling him out. Call out the actual chief content creative officer because he is the lead enabler / ass kisser. So how far does this go before you start saying, dude, you're the only one that can try to talk sense into Vince or walk away because you're the reason it's staying the same? If he has that much of non-respect for you, if Vince looks at Triple H with that much zero respect to shit on him every which way he turns, then he shouldn't be there. Because you're just going to get more of it. A show being Vinced? They're going to laugh at those fans. I bet you already in WWE's locker room, they're laughing when idiots get behind a mic or stupid journalists start writing articles saying that it's been Vinced. They're probably laughing because the ratings are going up and business is booming. And those people are still going to fucking watch. That is my point. Even if you believe Vince has more say, even if you think that, wouldn't you still blame Paul Levesque for being such an ass kisser for all of these years, his entire career? Wouldn't you put his ass to the coals because it's the only way he's going to wake up and see that this is not good? He needs to fucking man up. He needs to start the process, at least, of taking his balls out of Stephanie's purse. Ali, I appreciate, man. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for the coffees, guys. You guys are the absolute best, man. You don't even need to throw extra coffees on regular uploads. And the fact that you guys smashed the super thanks too, not just the super chats live, it's fucking humbling, man. Amplified, man, as I said a few minutes ago, until next time, and as I said a few minutes ago, there will be a next time. Top guy, I'm out. BC saying check you. Salute.